That was my phone alerting
Okay.
right now.
Okay, hey everybody. Welcome to Do You Believe on Paranormal Zone TV. Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me tonight. And, you know, I have a really great show tonight. I hope you really like it. And I've got an awesome guest. I'm so excited to have my friend Anthony Sanchez. He is the author of UFO Highway. And he's going to tell us tonight about hidden underground evidence and secrets, alien atrocities, and the Anunnaki. Are they returning? And secret societies. If he has time, we're limited with him tonight, but I want to welcome, and actually let's all welcome Anthony. Hi, Anthony.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, thanks, Anthony, for joining me tonight. I'm so happy that you are coming back on the show. I had Anthony on the show, a couple years ago, 2011 or 2012?
Right, with Donna.
Yeah. So anyway, Anthony, would you, you want to just tell a little bit about yourself to the viewers before we start the show?
Yeah, I have a software engineering background. I've worked in Silicon Valley for over 20 years. I've been researching aliens and UFOs, that whole phenomena, since about 1989 because of personal experiences that I had as a kid. And, just seeking validation for things that happened to me. Met Norrin Hayakawa in 2009, 2010, and ended up delving head into this whole Dulce phenomena, and that's really changed my life.
Anthony, can we start the show off because I have a lot of questions, and I've heard about these atrocities that have been happening in Dulce, and it's really been upsetting. Would you please talk about that?
Right. What you're making reference to is there's a lot of speculation, there's a lot of rumors about what happens there at Dulce, at the underground alien facility that is essentially being used by both the gray alien contingent and the military-industrial complex, specifically with connections to the United States Air Force. So, again, a little bit of an echo. It's kind of weird, so but I'm going to try and ignore it. A lot of people believe, and I believe, based on factual evidence, that abductions have taken place, cattle mutilations have taken place across the whole Archuleta Mesa, that entire plateau, both on the Colorado side and on the southern border of the mesa, or the northern border of the mesa, which is the New Mexico side. It's weird because it straddles both Colorado and New Mexico, the Archuleta Mesa. More importantly, to the west of the Archuleta Mesa is Mount Archuleta, and there's a known underground facility there since the 1960s when it was constructed. It was used for underground nuclear storage by the Air Force, and it has since been converted into a research and development facility. This is what we learned for companies like Hyperion. But what they're doing there is not the nefarious stuff what you're talking about, Noreen, which is the abductions of children and young women of childbearing age that they're using for these malevolent programs in this scientific auxiliary, which is part of the whole complex there in Dulce, where they're doing super soldier experiments, where they're essentially trying to create the perfect weapon. Imagine, humans that have been turned into, practically robots, but with superhuman abilities. They're given these commands. They could kill on specific orders. And, what they're doing is they're infusing young children with testosterone, adrenaline, giving them they're genetically altering their makeup, trying to make these super soldiers. Now, you have all these so-called super soldiers out there that are coming forth, and they have these videos, and they talk about, oh, I was part of this program, I was part of that program. Those guys, I can't validate their information. I can't verify who they are. The stories that were shared to me by the retired United States Air Force colonel who worked there at Dulce are unbelievable. In one instance, there was two super soldiers who had been manufactured, tested on, they had been tested in certain conditions. Then they were to be put down like dogs at a pound. And they sent them to the maximum containment center, where they have these very, very advanced facilities to essentially trap these people until it's time to dispose of them. And in the book, it goes into very, very, detailed descriptions of what that place is like. This is in the scientific auxiliary. Well, in this one particular instance, this was in the 80s, I believe, these two guys escaped and killed like over 20 people, technicians, scientists, and the entire facility had to be shut down as a result until they could contain this situation. And the colonel described that. It's in the book. It's pretty harrowing, tale. So
now this Commander X,
Colonel
X, he did he come forward to you, or did you find him, and he doesn't want to be identified?
I worked with an individual at Intel Corp. I don't want to say that. I worked with an individual at a semiconductor company, and at the semiconductor company, Maureen, make sure to go back and delete what I just said if you can, after the fact,
All
if
right.
it's possible. To
Okay.
read it out.
Yeah, I will.
I worked at a specific semiconductor company, and there I met an individual who was highly intelligent, he was far too educated for the job that he was doing at Intel. It was kind of out of place, quiet, but a nice guy. He all of a sudden disappeared one day from Intel. A year later, I'm in contact with him. All of the discussions that we had while he worked, I did it again. I said to the company, you're going to have to delete that, Noreen.
All right.
All of the discussions that I had with this individual at that semiconductor company were based on the information that I was putting out on my blog at the time, which was Area 51, Human Origins, HARP up in Gakona, Alaska. I even did some small write-ups on Linda Moulton Housework, A Strange Harvest, which is cattle mutilations, and trying to, put forth hypotheses on what that was all about. Anyhow, those were the conversations that we had. Before he left the company, he told me that he had previously worked on a classified project and he said Lockheed Martin Company. That you can leave here, by the way, because
Okay.
So I just don't want where I worked to be mentioned. So,
Okay.
Anyway, he disappeared, and a year later, I am at a client's location, and I'm building some servers. It's like midnight or whatever. And earlier in the day, I had received a strange phone call at the lab back at the place where I worked, and it was him. But it was strange, and I didn't know what to make of the call, because he called the phone that was in the lab. Later that night, I'm off-site at a private client's location for my company, my private company, and I get a phone call from him, and this is in Davis, California, and he gives me these coordinates and implores me, begs me to meet with him at this location, these coordinates. Well, it turns out it was Moffett Field. When I finally arrived, about 3 hours later, 2.5 hours later, from Davis to Moffett Field, I'm at an abandoned McDonald's. There's an abandoned McDonald's there, and we're in a parking lot right next to it, next to a dumpster, and he tells me, this is where I wanted to meet with you. And this spot holds significance, because apparently somebody who was working on the project that he worked on, this classified weapons project that had ET technology that was part of the whole program had suicided themselves, and he said that was bullshit. This person never would have done that. So he gave me all this information about a project that he was working on, but it also turns out that he belonged to a group called Com-12. In Com-12, there was someone else, this colonel that he was acquaintances with. Well, he shared some of my human origins work with that colonel, who said, I can validate everything in this blog that this Anthony Sanchez wrote, and in fact, I want to meet with him. So, not too long after that, I met with this colonel who was actually teaching at a university up here in Northern California. I can't say which university. There's just a few people on this planet who know that school that I'm talking about, with regards to the colonel. Because, I'm still trying to protect the guy's identity. I don't want people to know who he is. That's why his DD-214, his military discharge papers, were heavily sanitized. And, I covered up as much information as I could because I don't want people knowing who he is or who he was. Because he's no longer that person. He now has a new persona, new identity, new identification, everything. So it was this person that I've told you about from my old job that put me in contact with the colonel. You see, the person from my old job was AWOL from a classified project. Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and Hitachi Ltd. Out of Japan, they were working on a project called Leonid. Leonid stands for Low Earth Orbit Nanosatellite Interceptor Defense. It's a multifaceted weapons program that uses ET technology. They are constructing nanosatellites and putting them in low Earth orbit. That's what that whole program was about. And people have disappeared and died who were part of that program.
Oh my God. Now you wrote a book. Didn't you write a book on Leonid?
I was going to write a book on Leonid until I started getting death threats.
Oh my God.
Right, so I stopped. I did an interview with Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot in Santa Paula, California at the Glen Tavern Inn. And 2 days later, back in Sacramento, in my car, in my garage, which was locked from the inside, there was an envelope taped to the driver's side window that said, how confident am I that my car won't explode? And it said B-O-O-M, boom, right, to accentuate the fact that there could be a bomb. So that scared the hell out of me. So I stopped working on Leonid. I told Carrie Cassidy, do not air that interview. And to this day, she has not aired it. So that's what happened there. But Leonid aside, he put me in contact with the colonel. So after I met with the colonel at his office at this university near where I live, it wasn't long after that I ended up going to a cabin outside of Auburn, California, where we conducted the Dulce interview, which is the book. Pretty much the book.
Now, how did you find out all this information? Now, let's see. I know that Dulce has different levels to it, and
yeah, that's what everybody focuses on. They're like, they hear the information from John Lear and Tal Levesque, who's actually Bishop, Jason Bishop, and then there's Ann West, whose real name is Shirley Hinkle. She's on Facebook. She can't stand me, and I pretty much don't give a crap about her because she's a liar. The information that she has about Dulce is filled with disinformation. There was no Thomas Costello. Thomas Costello did not exist.
Oh, I read about him.
Yeah, he didn't exist. That's a complete fabrication. That's a lie. So everything that Shirley Hinkle is saying is a lie. Not everything, but a lot of what she's saying, probably 90% of what she's saying is a lie. It's all a lie. The real Dulce facility is the Ria Arriba Scientific and Technological Underground Auxiliary. That's what Dulce is. It's a real place that actually exists. Some of it is beneath the Archuleta Mesa, and the rest of it is over beneath Mount Archuleta. There's a entrance, there's a 2-story security auxiliary off the eastern slope headed towards Lumberton, and then there's a Scientific Auxiliary, TAD-3, which is right smack dab by the national park, where there's a water abatement, and all of it's detailed in the book. It's been so long since I've, really researched Dulce. I'm not even researching Dulce anymore because so much has resulted as from the work that I did on Dulce. You guys know that when I went there in 2012, I was going to meet with Sean Stone, Terrell Ventura, and his dad, Jesse Ventura, the former governor of Minnesota. Yeah. And I was supposed to be on a show with them about reptilians and the supposed Dulce base. Instead, Anya Briggs was there, and she was, her appearance on that show was controversial, to say the least, talking about reptilians and whatever. But I couldn't make it there on Friday. The producers wanted me there on Friday. I couldn't get there until the following Monday morning at like 2 in the morning is when I got there. But I didn't really go to be on the show. I went for my own purposes of research. I went up to the Archuleta Mesa. And when I did that, I got sick within a day. And I've never recovered since then. The entire side of my left face, from the top of my head, down to my left face, down to my neck and shoulder area, is partially paralyzed. I can't smile anymore on the left side of my face, and can't really feel my shoulder and my neck here. And if you've seen the video of me with Carrie Cassidy, when I came back, one, I was paranoid. I thought I was about to die. Two, people were saying that it was alarming to look at me because the entire left side from my head, it just was, I couldn't close my eyes. Blinking was impossible. It was really scary to look at, and terrified me. So I haven't gone back to Dulce since then. And I don't know if I will. It would take a miracle for me to go back there because of what happened to me. What I discovered, I was the first independent investigator, researcher, whatever you want to call me, to go to Dulce, New Mexico, up to the Archuleta Mesa, and I found United States federal government, signage on military equipment, Jet 5. These were 500-pound steel shipping containers for F-5 jet engines. Two of them perched atop the Archuleta Mesa, and beneath them, air was shooting up. It's like they were covering air ducts. So that's evidence of a facility. And these are illegally placed. You have to keep in mind that the Archuleta Mesa is sovereign. It's a sovereign nation. That's the Jicarilla Apache Nation. It's a sovereign country. It's not even the United States, technically. So what is United States military equipment doing on top of this mountain?
Yeah, why? What, how? How are they doing that?
Right, so I, was told an interesting story by our guide. He had taken two members of the Phoenix Suns basketball team hunting up there at the Archuleta Mesa. Oh my God, the elk are everywhere. They're like rats. I mean, they're everywhere. I mean, they're beautiful, don't get me wrong. But so it makes it a popular hunting destination. Anyhow, they had come across some men in a secluded area of the Mesa in military uniforms, black military uniforms with no insignia, heavily armed. And those men told the guide, who was a Jicarilla Apache former police officer, and these two members of the Phoenix Suns basketball team, that they need to vacate the premises immediately because they're conducting classified exercises. Mm-hmm. And the guy said, well, I live here. I'm, a former, law officer, and, I have every right to be here. And they looked at him and they said, today you don't have no right to be here. You need to vacate the premises. And they pointed their guns at him. It was a very scary situation. It was a very terrifying, position to be in because they were in the middle of nowhere practically. And, we're talking about the Dulce facility, one of the most scariest places on the planet. So that happened. And there are more incidents like that because there were other hunters, guides, residents who had encounters just like that. I received text messages from friends who live in Dulce, people who are Jicarilla Apache, with attached photos of helicopters, black SUVs, with military-looking personnel. But the problem is, their military uniforms, they're black and they have no insignia.
Oh my God, really? Now,
Right.
Now, Anthony, because you speak out so much about all of this, are you bothered by the men in black at all?
I've had visits to my house from AFOSI, or at least they say they're AFOSI, harassing me. Somebody broke into my house and stole hard drives. They only stole hard drives. So, yeah, I've been harassed on multiple occasions. There was one incident where I was, at a minimum, 2.5 miles away from the perimeter of Beale Air Force Base. An informant, a source of mine, told me, you're going to want to go on this evening to Beale Air Force Base at this particular time because you're going to see something land there. And what I saw, what I believe, was the X-37 from Boeing, which was this. It's like a 1/3 scale of the space shuttle. It's an unmanned area vehicle, and they send it up into low Earth orbit on classified missions. Anyway, I believe I saw that land at Beale Air Force Base. You can look up the X-37B from Boeing on Google. Just Google X-37B. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
My God.
One day later, after seeing this, by the way, I took my batteries out of my radios. I took my batteries out of my cell phone. I shut everything down. I did not want to give off any signal that I was, even anywhere near Beale Air Force Base. Within 24 hours at my house, I'm visited by 2 individuals asking me what I was doing the previous night, and to use their words exactly, on the perimeter of Beale Air Force Base. And I told them, excuse me, but I was more than 2.5 miles away from the perimeter of Beale Air Force Base. And they were harassing me. And they wanted to know if I had taken any footage, if I had any cameras. And of course the answer was no. I just used binoculars. I'm not stupid. But here's the scary part, Noreen. At that time, because this was back in 2011, I didn't have any plates on my car. I had just purchased my car. And there were no plates on my car. I was waiting for them. How did they know where I lived?
Oh, God,
How did they know who I was?
Oh, my God.
How did they know how to track me?
Hey, do you think you have, maybe they put something under your car, a tracking device?
Right. I actually have photographs and video of somebody from Beale Air Force Base installing something on the top of my house.
Oh, my God.
Right. See, I live in a spacious condo. It's a carriage unit. It's about feet here. Because there's 2, mine is a condo and the 2 attached units are townhouses. Well, one day out of nowhere, there's one of those lifting units where a guy can stand in there and he can use a little controller to lift himself up. Well, I'm not trying to sound racist or anything, but whenever there's work done around the condo complex, the homeowners usually hires these companies that have a lot of Hispanic workers, Mexican workers, typical, contractors that do gardening, repairs around homes, that type of thing. This time around, there were 2 guys. There was one on the ground and the one in the actual lifting facility. They both had sand-colored Air Force-issued boots. The exact same boots that they wear at Beale Air Force Base. Not to mention, they were clean-cut, nicely shaven. They were wearing jeans and, to make themselves look like normal people, they were wearing, Sacramento State and UC Davis hoodies or whatever. These guys were so military, it wasn't even funny. And I asked him, what are you doing on the top of my house? And he said, we're checking the roof for the homeowners. I'm like, well, what are you checking for? And he wouldn't answer me. Because they were installing something.
Oh, my God.
And it was shortly after that my house was broken into when I was doing heavy research on the Dulce facility, and they had stolen these hard drives from me.
Well, I guess, Anthony, you're lucky that's all they did to you.
Right. Right.
Okay, so I just want to go over this a little bit with you because, all right, so then in Dulce, they are doing experiments on humans. Is that correct?
They are.
They are.
Right. That's what happened. This is why in 1979 there was this whole firefight, this battle, if you want to call it that. There are subcontractors working underneath prime contractors who operate through general services agreements that are tied through black budget projects. All the monies there are through a black budget. The amount of money that they spend at places like Dulce is in the billions. It's not even funny. And what they're doing is they're not just doing medical experiments and biogenetic experimentation. That's just one part of it. The majority of what they're doing there are coming up with technologies for stealth, for advanced weaponry, plasma weaponry. There's another Indian reservation near Palm Springs here in California, the Cabazon Indian Reservation. Very controversial. Lots of people killed. Just read the book called The Octopus. You'll learn all about it. There's a direct connection between the Cabazon Indian Reservation, its underground facilities, and the Dulce underground facility. Michael Riconosciuto, who is in prison right now, who is brilliant, who did some software development for, what's the name of the company? It's Inslaw. He did software development for a company called Inslaw, developing a program that was a gigantic, sophisticated database system that has everybody in it. Everybody. And you can find the background of any politician, any military personnel, any civilian, and it was used, and it was stolen. It was stolen from Inslaw and sold to the Mossad, which is the Israeli Secret Service. And the Mossad was then peddling that to all these, nations that the United States had never wanted to, them to get a hold of this type of software. And anyway, Michael Riconosciuto, that's a whole other story, but Michael Riconosciuto is in prison now. Before he was imprisoned, he was hired at the Cabazon Indian Reservation to help put together their infrastructure because of his experience with Inslaw and the Dulce facility. And he openly admitted in an article, in a magazine article, the existence of the Dulce facility. That was a big mistake on his part.
Is he still alive? Is he still alive?
He's alive.
Oh.
He's alive, but he's in prison. And he doesn't talk about this stuff anymore. But Michael Riconosciuto is one of the key pieces, and I mentioned him in my book. And I believe Kerry Cassidy did or tried to interview him. But the stuff's real. It exists. I mean, there are these underground facilities.
All right, so so Paul Schneider. You know about Paul Schneider.
Phil Schneider.
It's Phil Schneider? Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's no longer with us. Wasn't he afraid of Paul Schneider? Isn't it Paul?
Phil.
Oh, I got it off the internet. It was Paul.
No, it's Phil Schneider. Phil Schneider worked there at the Dulce facility under a geological specification. He had a rhyolite clearance. He talked about stuff that he wasn't supposed to talk about.
Right.
He went onto the lecture circuit. See, in 1979, when they had that battle, the gray aliens were fighting with the military contingent there in Dulce, a bunch of people died. 22 people went missing. They were either dead or presumed missing. And Phil Schneider was one of those 22 people. He actually escaped from the facility and went into hiding for a while. He reemerged, went onto the lecture circuit, and what happened was he started talking openly about Dulce. He started showing physical samples, geological samples of the synthesized material that the Greys were creating that ultimately became the materials we use for our stealth fighter planes. Mm. And that picture, that's Phil Schneider, not Paul Schneider.
Well, Anthony, now I read.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. I'm getting the name. It is Paul Schneider. I was thinking of, wait a minute, hold on here. You're getting me confused because I'm thinking of Paul Benowitz.
Oh, yeah. I didn't.
Paul Benowitz.
Right.
And it's Phil Schneider. It's not Paul Schneider. It's Phil Schneider.
Okay. Now, okay, so he was involved in that fight that was going on with all the aliens. Now, I read an article that they said that there are 11, which you had mentioned, 11 species of greys. 2 work with the military, the government.
No.
Is that okay? So tell me about that.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of speculation onto the number of greys that are out there. I don't want to talk about the number 11. You and I had that conversation earlier, and I don't want to mention that number again.
Okay.
I need to move on from that.
All right.
Can't talk about the number 11. I can only talk about the number 2. The Anunnaki, the descendants of the Anunnaki, which are the Astro Albas, and the greys operating there in Dulce.
Okay.
Yeah, let's avoid 11 for right now.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah, there are great alien beings working there at the Dulce facility, and
so did these people I know the Phil Schneider was a engineer and he was helping build the underground tunnels or whatever they were, facilities. So he actually saw them, and I read that he described them with they had big eyes.
Right. Phil Schneider's descriptions, they don't really match up with the information that was provided to me by the Colonel. The gray aliens have the typical appearance of what we understand to be grays, like what you see in the movies, essentially. Not too different from that. Phil Schneider actually talked about reptilians, and I think that for his sake that he talked about reptilians, these Dracos or whatever, that was disinformation by him. See, I believe that Phil Schneider injected lots of information that was disinformation to save himself, to avoid getting killed. But he talked about too many things that were spot on that ultimately got him killed. Certain types of clearances, demonstrating publicly, showing people these samples, of different types of synthesized materials that they were creating there for our stealth program. This is classified stuff. And ultimately, that's what got him killed.
Oh, well, they call it suicide, but I guess you guys all know that he was killed.
Right.
So, Anthony, what about the Anunnaki? I'm hearing that the Anunnaki are coming back, but I read up on the Anunnaki, and they're pretty scary. Right.
The Anunnaki are actually found in history and throughout history. So Zechariah Sitchin, who's was world famous, who's still world famous. He passed away though. He used to be on Coast. He would talk with George Norrie, Linda Moulton Howe. Zechariah Sitchin did research and studied these cuneiform. There's these cuneiform tablets, and was able to translate them, and was able to reveal to us that the ancient Sumerians worshipped a race of gods called the Anunnaki. They were much, much taller than humans. They looked different than humans, and they had, these special abilities. The Anunnaki, in these tablets, there's a bunch of stories. It's amazing, Noreen, what you come to learn through non-canonical, information, with regards to like Christianity. Even within Christianity, a lot of real truthful information is suppressed. Well, a lot of the information that Zechariah Sitchin shared had to do with the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki created a subcaste of deities that were these demigods called the Igigis, and the Igigis just happened to look like grays. So a lot of that ties into the information that the Colonel learned when he was at Dulce, because these Greys tell the story of the Anunnaki. They tell the story of the Astro Albas, the Progenitors, how they got to our planet, how they themselves, the Greys, were created right here on Earth. But they also do talk about Greys that are not from Earth, that are from Sirius and the Pleiades and other places.
Anthony, you're saying that the Greys were created here on Earth?
The ones at Dulce, yeah, they claim to have been created here on Earth by the Anunnaki.
Do you know, okay, so can you give us a description? So I think you did mention a description of the Greys. Can you please give me that description again of what the Greys do look like?
Or well, they look like your typical gray alien beings, the ones that many people recall from being abducted, the people that recall from being visited. That image is, there was a famous book that was written by Whitley Strieber called Communion. This is back in 1985, 1986. I had personal experiences as a child. I remember walking into work because I was a student at the time. I was a part-time worker at a 7-Eleven. I was a little kid. I was 16 years old. I walked in and I looked in the books, and there was like a book rack of paperbacks, and this face was staring right at me. And I swore I'd seen that face before. And I did have experiences as a child. It was a gray alien. Look at the book, Google Communion from Whitley Strieber, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Wow. What about, okay, so if they're saying now that the Anunnaki is coming, what do they plan to do with us?
I don't know about the Anunnaki coming. I mean, people make up these stories all the time.
Yeah, so we keep hearing,
The descendants of the Anunnaki are the Astro Albas. They're here. You see, it's a very complex story, and I know we don't have enough time to go over all of it. But supposedly, the Anunnaki, when they came here to Earth, it wasn't... it didn't suit their biology, their biological makeup. They started to die off. So they created these subsequent, generations of Anunnaki with genetic alterations so that they can breathe oxygen, so that they can live long lives here. By the third time that they had done that, they realized they were going to need to create a pure human race. A purified race of humans that they could interbreed with. These were genetically altered humans. The theory is that the type O Rh negative bloodline of today are the genetic offspring of that particular line. It's funny because type O is the universal blood donation type, is the universal donor type. Anybody, any human with any blood type can receive type O blood. Now, type O Rh negative is unique in the fact that it is completely different from all other human blood types. And even today, medical science cannot definitively tell you where the type O Rh negative bloodline comes from. Well, according to the Colonel and the information that he received from these archaeological tablets that were all strewn all throughout these libraries in Dulce, that bloodline was this group of human females that they created, that they genetically created. They took early, human, females, and they altered them, and they had this pure bloodline of human females that were type O, that were perfect for interbreeding, for breeding purposes. Now, the ultimate lineages that became of that are the Astro Albas, which many believe are the elite, most wealthy royal families all across the globe that are the fraction of the percentage that own the 1% who enslaved the rest of us. It's the conspiracy stuff. It's the Illuminati. It's the Bilderberg group. It's the people. It's all your royal families. It's your it gets very complex. It's such a complex, set of information.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So then we are genetically altered. Us human beings are genetically altered.
Every single human on this planet is a result of a genetic modification. Lloyd Pye, before he passed away, did lots of work on trying to understand why humans were so evolved by comparison to every other species on this planet. Let's take a look at the human genome. There are over 6,000 genetic defects, mistakes, in the human genome. Our closest so-called relative, the chimpanzee, which we share 98.9999 similar genetic material. Our genome is almost identical. They have less than 250 mistakes. Why do humans have over 6,000 genetic defects? Well, many researchers and geneticists across the globe have discovered that there are telltale signatures that a chemical alteration has taken place in many areas of our genome. Chemical alterations. One in particular is, now I forget the two signatures, the two exact signatures. I wrote it in my book. Well, this is not the type of stuff that I can remember off the top of my head. It's what makes us differ from all other, from the apes, essentially. We have a different set of chromosomes than they do. So that was a genetic alteration, and there's evidence of chemical alteration, and it's visible in every single living human. Now, to take it a step further, we need to go back and look at the chimpanzee. The chimpanzee has been evolving over millions and millions and millions of years. So have humans. We're not that different from the chimpanzee when you look at the tree branch where we split apart, where hominids go here and then the apes go here. The problem is human evolution is happening at an exponential rate super fast. In 7 million years, the difference between what chimpanzee has become and what a human has become is dramatically different. There's no way that the level of evolution, that the exponential level of our evolution can be explained without genetic modification. They talk about the mitochondrial Eve theory. The mitochondrial Eve theory states that 250 to 300,000 years ago, somewhere in the middle of Africa, humans became erect, upright, intelligent, and developed the ability to speak and began to spread out across the globe from Africa. That's called the mitochondrial Eve theory. They're able to prove that through looking at the mitochondria, which is in the DNA of all women and men. They can look at the mitochondrial DNA and show our maternal lineage. Showing that it was a specific woman all the way back in Africa that essentially gave birth to all of us. So here's the funny thing about that particular theory. According to the colonel who read these archaeological, tablets at Dulce, the gray aliens talk about the Anunnaki about 250 to 300,000 years ago modifying humans, modifying existing humans, and creating that lineage of the type O Rh negative females for the purposes of interbreeding. Well, the gray aliens supposedly state that it was at that point that the Ijiji, who were the Greys, were given these directives by the Anunnaki to turn the human race into a slave race for the purposes of mining gold, agriculture, so much more. That's why supposedly we're so much more intelligent. Otherwise, we'd still be at an equilibrium, at an equal pace with the chimpanzee. We're not supposed to have evolved so much faster than all the other species on this planet.
So, do you think the government will ever acknowledge to us these aliens?
You're talking about disclosure. I don't know. I don't know if the government's ever going to come forward unless there's something catastrophic coming down the pipeline, like an invasion or a return. Maybe, people keep saying, "Oh, the Anunnaki are returning, Planet X, Nibiru." There's a huge planetary object on the other side of Saturn. Who knows? All I know, I can tell you based on the information that I've managed to synthesize over the past 20 years. I believe that on the far side of the moon there's an alien base. There's a great alien component there. I received confirmation of this through people like the colonel who worked at Dulce, an individual who I know that worked at Area 51, and I'm not talking about Bob Lazar. I know of alien beings that live there at Area 51. They've been there for decades. We know about the Greys at Dulce. There's so much information. Look, we're about to make monumental discoveries on Mars. Just this week they said that the NASA has discovered evidence that there was indeed life on Mars. They're speculating microbial life, but I'm telling you, they're going to find buildings, structures. Richard Hoagland has done a lot of tremendous work on looking at the surface of Mars and trying to identify pyramids and structures. Look, we're finding structures on the moon all the time. The information of the moon, the high definition imagery has been molested. It has been forever altered. So unless we go back there with high definition optical equipment, we're subject to what they're giving to us since the 1960s.
Anthony, so there's speculation that we never really did land on the moon. Did we, in your opinion, did we really land on the moon?
Stanley Kubrick did some work for NASA, and there's a lot of speculation about us not landing on the moon. I believe that we did land on the moon. We're there right now on the moon. I know a lot of people think it's funny when people like me say that there's a base on the moon. Yeah, I can tell you definitively there are bases on the moon. There are, all you have to do is look at, accidentally released, declassified documents that talk about projects going all the way back to the 1960s and 70s where NASA and the military were making plans to, set up permanent bases on the moons. But it's not, you need to go beyond the projects themselves and ask, why were they doing that? Well, many people believe that the astronauts actually found things that they were not supposed to find on the moon. Look, there is a declassified document that shows that when the astronauts were orbiting the moon and when they were on the far side, they literally saw what appeared to be satellite dishes. And in the audio of that particular moment, they literally said, "Can you hear that chanting? It sounds like chanting through the radio." And they were receiving these radio signals. And all of that is documented. It's part of a declassified set of documents to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. If you Google it, you'll find it. And make no surprise that these guys who are now in their 80s and 90s, a lot of these astronauts on, facing their final days, are finally coming forward and saying, yes, aliens do exist. There are objects on Mars, there are objects on the moon. These guys are coming forward with this information.
Wow, isn't that amazing?
Right.
Oh my God. I know you got about 10 more minutes?
Right.
Oh, all right. Okay. What about these secret societies? What can you tell us about that?
Well, so we were talking about the Anunnaki and the descendants of the Anunnaki who were the Anu and then and the Anunnaki, and then the Astro Albas. Well, the Astro Albas supposedly are many of your royal families today. You remember that movie Eyes Wide Shut with Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise, and that secret society? That movie was directed by Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick revealed a little bit too much in that movie, and he ended up dead before the movie was even released.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because he gave a lot of insight to the secret societies, such as the Illuminati.
Oh.
There's satanic sex rituals, all these weird, ceremonies and things that they conduct. Well, look it up, people. Stanley Kubrick is dead because of the fact that he revealed too much information in Eyes Wide Shut. Isn't it funny that Stanley Kubrick was the same guy that actually filmed scenes of astronauts landing on the moon in a huge studio? Oh. Did you know that Stanley Kubrick actually filmed, fake scenes of astronauts landing on the moon?
No.
Ultimately, we went to the moon, but there was reasons why he was hired by NASA. So all of this is connected. You talk about secret societies. There are secret societies within the government, outside the government, all across Europe, even Asia. Even within Asia, there are secret societies. A lot of these secret societies that are very, very ancient have ties, So doesn't you don't have to be white, blue-eyed with blonde hair to be part of the Illuminati. I mean, just shit. Carlos Slim Halou, who's one of the richest men on the planet. I think he's even richer than Bill Gates, maybe. He lives in Mexico City. He has bloodlines going back to the Middle East. A lot of people say that his bloodlines go back to modern-day Iraq, which is the Tigris and Euphrates River, the cradle of civilization, human civilization, where we began, where the Anunnaki were worshipped, where the Sumerians lived. Isn't it funny that a guy in Mexico City and who's one of the richest men on the planet has ties back to that part of the world? It's just funny to me. He's not the only one. There's tons of people like him out there. Mega billionaires, so wealthy that they're untouchable. And they run the planet. Why do you think that every single country on the planet is now, the majority of the countries on the planet are now functioning economically under a centralized banking system? Just like the Federal Reserve right here in the United States. They try and get all of these countries onto these international, dollars, into the international dollar standard, through the IMF and through all these big organizations that own and run all the banks across the globe, because they don't want anybody on the gold standard. They don't even want you on a silver standard, like in the old days when dollars here in the United States were backed by gold and backed by silver. They now want it backed by nothing that's created in a computer that can be wiped out at a moment's notice. The dollars that you have in your purse or your wallet today literally are at the mercy of a computer somewhere in a bank or a reserve. They're worthless. Look at this book called The Monster of Jekyll Island. Read up on people like on Jim Mars. Find out why Kennedy and Lincoln were really assassinated. It had nothing to do with anything political except for the fact that they were trying to abolish centralized banking systems. In 1913, on Jekyll Island, they secretly held a meeting, the richest families in the United States and some agents from Europe who represented the Rothschilds as other rich families from across Europe, families with huge banking interests. They conspired, and what they did is they abolished federal notes, which were money that was backed by the government, and they instituted fake money from the Federal Reserve. This is money that they print out of thin air, and then they sell to the government in exchange for bonds at these extremely outrageous interest rates, and then What they did was, at the same exact time in 1913, was create an illegal organization called the IRS, which is not constitutional. The IRS didn't exist before this happened. What they did was, is they created the IRS so that instead of the government paying us back, the United States worker, you and I, pay back the Illuminati slave masters, the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, those that own the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is not federal. It has nothing to do with the government. They gave themselves a government-sounding name. They built this gigantic building with a huge American eagle at the top of it. It's a private corporation owned by banking interests. And they have more power than the Congress. They answer to no one. Their only connection to the government is that the President of the United States gets to choose who the director of the Federal Reserve is going to be. Alan Greenspan, and from Alan Greenspan, and then forget the guy's name, but all of these directors of the Federal Reserve, they're hand chosen by the president. Isn't it funny that the presidents always have ties to Wall Street, to the biggest hedge funds, to the biggest banking operations, to the biggest corporations? Everything, our entire country is owned by what is known as the corporatocracy. Corporations own and run this country. You better believe that. And the Federal Reserve is nothing more than a corporation. Look up Jordan Maxwell. Listen to some of the shows on YouTube from Jordan Maxwell. Did you know that on your birth certificate, it's actually like a stock certificate? Look at your Social Security card. On the back of your Social Security card, and some of them on the front. You're nothing more than a commodity to a company that's called the United States, the corporation of the United States Corporation, or something like that. All of this is legitimate. All of this is real. It's all verified. I'm not Jim Morris. I'm not Jordan Maxwell. That's not my focus. But that's the reason why people are assassinated, like our presidents who have tried to abolish that.
My God. Well, Anthony, I don't know.
Yeah, so you talk about secret societies. You talk about secret societies. They are in place to protect their schemes, their rackets.
Oh my God.
That's it.
Wow. You actually cut out there for the last second.
Oh, sorry about that. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back now. Oh my
Right.
God. Well, Anthony, I know you have to go, and I'm so sorry you have to leave us. Fascinating information. Anthony,
Thank you for having me.
oh my gosh, do you want to tell people where they can get your book?
Yeah, UFOhighway.com.
Oh, that's it?
That's it. UFOhighway.com. It's not at Amazon and it's not at eBay. Those are people that buy my book for me for $20 and then sell them for $100 to $400 on Amazon and eBay. Don't buy from them.
Oh yeah, they are. I saw that on there. $100 on eBay for your book.
Yeah, don't do that.
Hey Anthony, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. Wealth of information. I really appreciate it. And you thank you, and you be safe out there, my friend.
Right, thank you, Noreen.
Thanks, honey. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh gosh. Everybody, hey, thanks for joining me tonight, and I know all of you, I've seen so many people tonight. Holy cow, big house. Hey everybody, if you enjoyed the show, would you please give my show a like? I'd really appreciate it. And let's do some shout outs. Hey, don't forget, I didn't bring my calendar. Anyway, next week is Andrea Perrin. She's going to talk about the hauntings that are still with the family, and especially the mother. So she's going to talk about that. Don't forget, the week after that is Skinwalker Ranch. Then on Saturday. Now, the last week of January, my show will be on a Saturday because my guest can't come during the week. He lives on the other side of the bay, but he's coming into the studio. And the show is going to be on remote viewing. And I'm looking forward to that as well. So let's do some shout outs. And I hope you all enjoyed the show tonight. Let's do some shout outs. Let's see who I have. And this is going to be really hard. So I have Simon James. I have Chrissy AG. Yes, thank you for joining us tonight. You finally made it. Alexandria Violet. Charlie Pineda. Chipper. Dave, my good buddy Dave. Let's see. Butter. Something. I'm not going to say that. But Warrior. Carol Lemke. Thank you. Paraghoster. I don't see. I know. Ebony was there and Krista V. Let's see. Krista V. Travis Ginger. Unique Annie. Panther Eyes Hidden. I know Callie was in. I saw Callie and Royce. Keep going, guys. So I need to see who's here. I want to give you a shout out. Jay, yay, Jay made it. Shelly, Carrie, Hare, my good buddy from the UK. Let's see. Who else? Mary Dallas, Aaron. I did say hidden, I'm pretty sure. Michael Banks. Simon James. Let's see. This is really difficult. I know there was a lot of people here, and finding your names and going back is pretty tough. I wish you would just type your name in if I didn't say it, because I'd like to say your name. I really appreciate all of you coming here tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please don't forget to, if you enjoyed the show, please subscribe also if you haven't already subscribed. And Tammy, hi Tammy, and Justin. Oh, hi Justin. Did I forget anybody? B Singer, hi, and G Gabby Unit. Yes, I'm shouting out. And I did Michael Banks. Hey, if you haven't subscribed, would you please subscribe? Please make sure you give the show a like if you like the show tonight. And yeah, bless you, Justin. Sweet Justin. So I don't see any other names, and I really feel bad because I'd love to give you a shout out. Ebony, thumbs up, honey. Rebecca, that's me. Yes, I'm doing a shout out for you, honey. Thanks, everybody. Anthony Sanchez, thank you so much for being on the show. As always, he's my good friend. We love him. Michael, hi, Michael. Thank you for being here. And Dave, my good buddy. So... And Carl White. Oh, yeah, I won't forget about you. I just have to see your name, and I'd love to give you a shout out. Okay, anybody else want to shout out? Okay, so again, I really hope you enjoyed the show, something different. And it's what I like to do. I like to bring different topics. Doesn't have to always be the same kind of topic. So everybody, I guess I'm going to say goodnight then. And I'll hope to see you all on Thursday, next Thursday. And don't forget, that'll be Andrea Perrin, same time, same channel. And I want to say goodnight to you all. I love all you guys. You know that. Maniac 73. Yes. Hi, thank you for being here. There's a cat. Dave's saying cat. Yeah, and I did say a paraghoster. I'm pretty sure I did. If you want to hurry up and give me... Okay. All right. Well, I don't see any other names. And again, thank you so much. And I'm going to say good night. And I love all you guys. Believe me, I love you all. So good night, everybody.